This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing Max McGee. Max McGee got a degree in software engineering. He's a full stack engineer. I'm learning the difference between those. And then he's decided to change careers and go into a different direction, which happens to be mortgage. He's a mortgage broker now as well. So I'm really fascinated to learn about your journey and how it all began. So Max, maybe we could start with where you went to college and where it progressed from there.
Yeah, sounds great, Nana.
Okay.
Cool. Hey, so yeah, my name's Max. I'm 26 years old, went to college over at UCLA, grew up here in San Diego. When I went to college, I think I was, 17. I went right out of high school and, going to college up in LA, it was like a whole new world to me. And so I wouldn't say I was the most focused when I first got there on, what am I actually studying here and what's the goal for my studies? So I kind of hopped around different degrees and, from environmental science to, economics. And I ended up landing on political science. And I actually was able to graduate in 3 years, which was pretty cool. While I was there, there was a lot of, this was in like 2014, 2015, and there was a lot of buzz around, the startup technology world. And so I I had seen a lot of different blogs online about learning how to be a programmer, be a software developer. And I was kind of interested in that creative process of like software development and creating a product, and it just was really appealing to me. And so I ended up taking a couple courses online while I was at UCLA, and I kind of decided that I'm not like a super great science mind. Like I'm not that great at math or physics or computer science, but it seemed like these boot camps were saying that you could learn this without necessarily being, a genius. And so my plan was, okay, I'm gonna graduate from here and I'm gonna go up to San Francisco to one of these in-person boot camps, and I'm gonna learn how to code. Get a job after that, and that's what ended up happening for me. So that was kind of my.
So you're telling us you're not a genius. Yeah, you went through UCLA in 3 years, and in your spare time, you also learned how to code, right? Or you started learning how to code.
Yeah.
I think that's tremendous.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd be in the library, like in between my poli-sci classes, which and I would just be in the library doing my programming classes basically at college, but really learning on the internet more than learning in the classroom. So
cool. Mm-hmm. So then you got your, what do you call that, certification?
Well, at the boot camp, this was at the time when they were like brand new and it was really the hot thing. And so, I mean, there's no real certification. You just kind of, I think maybe they gave me a little certificate, but basically it's more about what you can show for yourself, what you've built, the websites, the apps that you've built while you were in boot camp, and kind of showing potential employers that you're basically your code, like your code base in itself is kind of like a resume. And so I didn't want to stay in San Francisco, and I wanted to come back to San Diego. And so I just kind of put everything back in my car and drove back down after I graduated. And then I started like my job search down here in San Diego. I started going to a lot of meetup groups that were like programming, software related, and, had my resume ready. And eventually I went to a software meetup at a company called Zito, which was in downtown San Diego. And I was actually over, they had a bunch of great food there, and I was over by the sandwich section, and there was a guy there hanging out, and we just started talking. I was like, told him a little bit about my background, and he's like, oh yeah, well actually I'm a manager here at this company, and we're actually hiring right now. And so I followed up with him, and we set up a meeting or an interview, and it was kind of an intense, like 2-hour interview where they asked me some technical questions, and it was kind of intimidating. But they gave me a job offer, and I worked down there for about a year and a half as a and that's really where I, learned how to be a decent software developer, just kind of by grinding there. And the commute was like an hour long from Oceanside to downtown San Diego, and but it was great. That was like my first job, I guess, after college. So I was pretty excited that it all kind of worked out.
So what types of projects were you working on there?
We were doing like lead generation technology. So building like these custom funnels kind of to generate leads. And the company was like this, voted #1 place to work in San Diego. And it was a great environment. They gave us free lunch every day. They had a chef like at the company. It was pretty awesome. It was kind of cool to see that what these boot camps had kind of pitched me to go, hey, you should go, you're going to get a job and it's going to work out. It actually did work out, and I did get a job, and it was a great first kind of thing out of college. I don't know what I would have done with political science if I didn't do coding, but I always was more of like a people skills kind of person rather than an engineer. So
that boot camp was a grind, right?
Yeah. It was like a 4-month program. And they said, hey, if you're married, don't, plan on not talking to your family much.
Wow. Well, good for you. So then you left that company, and what happened after that?
After that, I wanted to leave that company, and I did some freelancing kind of projects, and I did that for about a year. And eventually I really needed to get some more consistent work, and I actually got connected with a guy on LinkedIn who was the director of technology at an agency here in San Diego. And so I started doing contract work in a technology called React, which is like a front-end software development technology. And basically I was a contractor on a project for American Girl, which is like a doll company. And so I spent about the next 8 months looking at American Girl dolls and building a doll customizer every day, which was, and it was
cool.
Yeah. So it was a great team, and I would go down to their office in Pacific Beach, and it kind of felt like they really liked me, but I was always like a contractor. I wasn't a full-time guy.
Right.
After that project ended, they gave me like a full-time, job offer, which I ended up taking. And so I worked there for another year and a half full-time. And once again, great company, great job, great
Didn't
stuff.
you build another app for another company?
On that company, we worked on like multiple projects. We did like the Container Store, a lot of like e-commerce apps. It was like a very innovative company, and they're, amazing user experience, and it was pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie, it was a great job.
So essentially, you're the guy that figures out where you put it in the basket and all that stuff online. Is that what you did?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. It's so funny. I was talking to a fellow yesterday. He works for Amazon Web Services, which is their cloud computing, right? And he's like, my stepmother wants to complain about the boxes that Amazon uses in shipping. And he goes, I'm in the cloud computing. I'm not into the consumer side. So I just thought that was great. So my question sort of fit into that analogy. Yeah. Okay, so now we've done the whole computer thing, and then what happened?
So I kept doing the computer thing. Went back to kind of contracting and doing freelance type of work. I decided to leave that company I was at, and because I just wanted to have a little more flexibility, and I knew that I could get work as a contractor. And so fortunately that company, kept on giving me work that I would do, 3 to 6 month projects with random kind of teams from all around the world. And I would just hop on these projects and contribute, and it would go great. I could work from home. But I kind of all along, the whole time I've worked as a programmer, like I've always known that this is not really like what I want to do forever. And even though it's a great, job and I'm really fortunate to have work, I knew that I needed to challenge myself a little bit more. And my goal was not to be, like a senior architect engineer. That just wasn't really what I felt like I was the most skilled at. Or, there were some people that I was like, wow, they're really passionate about programming. They love great code. They love this. But for me, I was more like, I can do this really well, but I need to challenge myself, and I need to interact with people more, and I need to grow in some different skill sets. And so I checked out some different types of jobs, like entry level kind of sales, project management. And then I realized that my dad, who I always had worked next to in his office here, I would do programming and he would be working on his stuff. He does mortgages. He's a mortgage broker. And so I just started getting curious about like what he was doing and, how his job works. He always seemed to have a lot of, independence and always seemed to, thrive in his work. And so at first it was just like a curiosity of like, what does he do for work and how does this industry work? And it seems like he can make pretty good money doing what he does. And so I kind of started to sit with him and shadow him. And while I was still doing contracting work for programming, I started to like sit down with him and learn about loans and mortgages. And then I decided, hey, it's easy to get a license. Why don't I go get a real estate license and get a mortgage license? And so that was about when COVID started, maybe over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I got licensed, and then I started to kind of work with him and COVID was kind of cool because it was, everything was shut down, but we were kind of hunkered down, and he had a lot of business. And so we kind of collaborated, and obviously it's a father-son relationship, and my dad's pretty laid back. So we had to get used to working with each other, and, we have to give each other a little bit of space. But basically he gave me a full education of the mortgage industry and process. And basically I just became super uncomfortable, in these new areas where I've never done before, like calling clients, getting angry at people in a nice way, push things along, talking to people about pricing of their, trying to win clients to choose us. So like I went from a world where I basically could just check in once a day and then go into my cave and program, to a world where you're like on the phone all the time, and it's all commission based, so it's just a totally different industry and world. And so I've gotten pretty good at it I'd say in the last couple months. And now I have clients of my own that I'm working with, and I don't know, it's just all come together pretty well. So yeah,
so sort of met your need to talk to people rather than hide in a cave, as you put it.
Yeah.
Maybe too much so, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I would meet with you, Nana, and you're really helpful in kind of prioritizing what I needed to work on in my own personal skill set, and where I had like weaknesses and strengths. And so that was really helpful. So yeah, I'm just kind of going with it. And
so what would Max McGee say to that Max McGee that was entering college? Would you have done anything differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have thought more about what am I doing here at college? What does my degree have to do with my goals? I would have thought a lot more about what kind of career direction I want. And I don't know if I would have known what I wanted to do, but I would have at least been a little more intentional about it. I would have maybe interned in college and tried to, ruled out some kind of jobs that I don't like, instead of just kind of cruising through college and, kind of having fun. I would have maybe been a little more focused. But
Yeah, but sometimes in life you need to have a little fun, because at some point you're an adult and then you have to temper that a little bit. But you're absolutely right about getting internships, because the people I work with, I'm often saying, if you can get a little internship, even if it's just for a little bit of time, you're going to get a feel for what that business does and what you would be doing in it. I think so often people misconstrue what a day looks like in the day of a software engineer or a mortgage broker. So
yeah.
your days are, would you say, what percentage do you do what?
You mean throughout like a day?
Yeah.
Normal day? I'd say 30-40% of the day are basically taking loans that we have in process and pushing them along, collecting items that the client needs to get us, and then making sure that a loan gets all the way through the different steps, all the way to the funding process. And that can involve like being a firefighter, and when issues come up, calling people, collecting certain documents. In loans, there's a person called an underwriter, who's basically the person who's like keeping you between closing the loan and the loan failing. Like they're kind of like the gatekeeper. They say, oh yeah, this looks like a good deal, but I don't know about this aspect of this client, so you need to figure this out or this. So calling the underwriters and making sure that we clear up all of the steps in completing a loan, that's like 30-40%. Maybe 20-25% is just quoting people and getting the new business going, getting new loans going. And then the rest is probably interacting with real estate agents and trying to network and get new. It's all about, building your business. And so, that's kind of what I'm working on right now, is building my own like client base and establish relationships with
Oops,
different.
There we go. Go ahead. Sorry, you went out. You're fine now.
Oh yeah, that was just establishing relationships with like real estate agents and kind of spreading the word about what I do.
So if you had some career advice for somebody who wants to become a software engineer, like what would you tell them?
I would see what their purpose of being an software engineer is. If it's just to get a good paying job, and if there's not actually a real passion for being an engineer and being a developer, and maybe I would question that a little bit and say, maybe, a lot of the boot camps come off and say, hey, that, anyone can do this, it doesn't matter, who you are, anyone can learn how to code, which is true. It is kind of like reading or writing. It's like another language, but it's really hard. Learning how to program is very difficult, and it involves a lot of patience and dealing with frustrations, dealing with bugs, so it's really hard work. But I think I would just advise them to like kind of really make sure that they want that kind of a style of work where they're just heads down and they're in the code figuring out problems. And maybe some people go to and learn how to code, but then they become like really great project managers or product developers. It's a good place to start, and you don't necessarily have to be a programmer for your whole career. You can hop into different areas. So
that's really cool. So do you have to go to college to become a coder?
No way.
So in theory, you could have skipped college entirely.
Yeah, I mean, you could learn high school. You could learn elementary school. It's really about, no one has ever, for my programming jobs, no one's ever asked me, hey, Max, could I see your diploma? Mm-hmm. Don't even ask me where I went to college. So
it's interesting. Times are changing, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's all about, what can you do for us, versus who are you, or what did you. So that's
Yeah,
what's
it's
great.
about the bottom line. It's about, yeah, are you going to increase the bottom line with your skill set? Absolutely. Well, cool.
Yeah.
And so if someone's thinking about becoming a mortgage broker, what would you tell them that's more like? How would you describe that?
Yeah. Well, that one is more of a kind of a, sales. If you love working with clients and you're kind of entrepreneurial, and you're willing to get up every day and be disciplined and self-motivated, and also if you're interested in real estate and that whole industry, I'd say like being a mortgage broker is kind of like the programmer of the real estate agency. I mean, of the real estate industry, because like in software, the programmer is like the engineer. He's the guy that gets it done, gets the product built, gets the problem solved. But in the real estate industry, the mortgage guy is kind of like the engineer. They're like the guy who figures out the financing for the real estate deal and actually runs the loan through a software program to make sure that the borrower is qualified. So it's kind of technical, actually, being a mortgage broker, but it also involves a lot of people skills. So you're kind of like a man of multiple trades, because you're watching the market every day and watching the rates. You're emailing and calling your clients, and you're also doing technical aspects of determining if this person can qualify, and then it's kind of crazy. Yeah, it is. It actually, now I think about it, it is pretty, it gets pretty cerebral sometimes.
It's definitely cerebral, and you've got a lot of balls up in the air, right?
Yeah.
You've got to manage all of them and make sure that you're on top of all of it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, if you can, because there's no cap on how many clients you can have going, which I've always been interested in, of having more of a open-ended commission-based income rather than a salary. But at the same time, there's nothing that different between you and just anyone else. At the end of the day, if you don't wake up and make things happen, then you don't have no income. So that can be a little bit, it's definitely more stressful, I think, but also when things are going well, it's pretty rewarding,
right?
Too. So it's a little, that's how I would say.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, I have a sales background as well. When you do a good sale, it's like the thrill of victory, right?
Yeah.
Or as opposed to the agony of defeat, right? The Olympics. But yeah,
it's rewarding because it's, you kind of made it happen.
Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, is there any other little pearl of wisdom that you want to share with people before we sign off?
I'd say in this journey that you're on, surround yourself with people like Nana, or people who are, have more experience, and don't make all of your decisions in your own wisdom and your own, thinking, oh, this is what I should do. I mean, that's obviously important, but I would run your plans and run your goals off of like a group of people, so that you can get feedback and maybe get some correction if you're kind of, thinking one way, and, other people are like, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's wise to have like counsel and have people around you that are on your team and that are for you, and can give you some good feedback, sometimes hard feedback if you need it, instead of just being like, oh yeah, I watched all these YouTube videos and I think this is what I want to do, or that'd be my advice.
That's really good advice. And so when the Max McGee gets old and gray and is going to retire, what do you hope that you can look back on your career and be proud of?
I hope that I, made an impact on a lot of people, like interacted with a lot of people, helped a lot of people. I like being like an advocate for people. And so that, maybe I have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people that remember what it was like to interact with me, and how I treated them and how I helped them. That would be pretty awesome, I think.
Totally awesome.
It's cool how when you have relationships with people, it can expand into meeting all kinds of new people and just that's what I'm liking right now about this industry is the relationships that you have with people.
Yep, you're gonna make a lot of them too. That's outstanding. So
Yeah.
if anybody has questions or they want to reach out to you, should they reach out to you through LinkedIn, or what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, I think on my email, actually, I can say.
Is that on, that's on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think on LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn works.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
And you can always go in there, and if you needed to change or add anything, you certainly can.
Yep, it's Max McGee, MCGEE on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, because your name is a little bit, there are other Max McGees on there.
Probably, yeah.
I ran into that actually. All right, Max. Well, I really appreciate your time. I'm so excited for your future, and I know you're going to do great things. So just keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah. Hope this is
Have a great day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.